problem one. Problem one deals with, we have to first draw the UML diagram for the two classes, and I will show that, and then I will write a test case that creates 3 circles with its respective x, y, and radius, and then I'm going to calculate its area and parameter and display whether if it contains 3, 3, if circle 1 contains circle 2, and then if circle 1 overlaps circle 2. So let's just go to the header file for point. So point here has 2 variables, x and y, represents the coordinates. X and y are doubles and they're private variables. And then here we have some set of public methods. So we have the public no args constructor where there's no arguments. We have a constructor with 2 parameters that takes in x and y, and they're both doubles. And then we have the deconstructor or destructor, and then we have the accessors that retrieves x and y and then returns a double. Okay, so that is the header file for that. So for point, we have the implementation here. This is the no args for point. This is the constructor with parameters. So we're setting this x and y to the class x and y. And then for we have a destructor that just resets x and y to be 0. And then we have here the get methods for x and y that returns x and y in the double format. Okay. In Circle 2D, we use a variable called center called point that uses that class that we just discussed. They'll give us x and y and then a double radius, and then here are some public methods. So we have a no args constructor for circle 2D. Its default circle will be 0, 0 for the x and y, and its default radius will be 1. Here we have a circle 2D. It's a constructor where it has 3 parameters, which will have an x, y, and radius, all doubles. Then we have a destructor where for the circle 2D, and then here these 4 methods I highlighted are the accessors, which will get the center, the radius, the area, and the parameter. To get the center, it's going to return it as a point. To get the radius, will return as a double. For get area, it's going to calculate the area using this formula, and then it's going to return it as a double. And then for parameter, we're going to use a formula, and then we're going to return it as a double. These 3 methods serve, they basically return a Boolean value, and we're going to use them in the main method to check to see whether if a circle is containing a certain specified point, if a circle is containing inside another circle, or if the circle is overlapping one circle. Here's the implementation of it. So, like I said, the no args constructor, we're going to have set the center to be 0, 0, but the radius with 1. If we did already have x and y, and the radius, we'll use this constructor, and then update those x, y, and radius to the class. Then we have a destructor, and then we have the get method for radius, center, area, and parameter, and we'll return them in their respective values, which will be a double, a point, a double, and a double. See, these are the formulas I used to calculate the parameter I had to import using pi. I just get the radius and then multiply it, get the radius and multiply it to get the area and parameter. So for the circle 2D, we have an is contained. It just checks to see if we have the circle contains a specific point. And so if we're going to get the center of x and y, and we're going to use the distance formula, which is this, and then we're going to set that up, and then check if the distance is less than the radius. If it is, it's going to return true. If it's not, it's going to return false. Then the is contained method will check one circle is containing another circle. To do that, we're going to use again the distance formula, and we're going to say, hey, x, the circle will stand for x2 and y2, and plug those respective values in. And then here we're just going to have an if statement to check to see if when we combine the distance and the circle's radius, if it's less than the circle's radius of circle 1, so then it will return true, but if not, it's going to return false. And then for is overlapped, we're going to pass in a circle. Again, we're going to use the distance formula, and then we're going to use circle as an x2, y2, and then if the distance overall is less than the radius plus the circles get the radius, combine those two. If it's less than that, returns true. If it's not, it will return false. So if we ran this code, we instantiated 3 variables with a certain x, y, and radius. So it's going to call the constructor with those same number of parameters with the same data types. We're going to calculate the area by grabbing the get the area method, and then parameter. We're going to print it out the parameter of that circle, of circle 1 and 2, of circles 1 area and circle 1's parameter. And then these 3 if statements check to see if is circle 1 contains this 3, 3, so this coordinate. If it does, it returns this print statement. If it doesn't, it returns this print statement. This if statement checks to see if circle 1 is, if the is contained is true, or circle 2 does contain circle 1, and if so, it prints this. If not, it would print this. And this if statement would check to see if, if circle 3 is overlapping circle 1. If it is, prints this. If not, it prints this. So running the code, we'll get the area is 95.03, parameter is 34.56. So that circle does contain that coordinate, but circle 2 is not fully inside of circle 1, and circle 3 is not overlapping circle 1. So circle 2 and is the class, and has these are the methods, and then this is the variables, and this is the points methods, and then variables. So problem 2, we're just going to have a bunch of classes implementing other classes. Person 1 is the parent class, and student will extend to person, employee will extend to person, but faculty and staff will both extend to employee. Person will have these variables: a name, an address, a phone number, an email. But then student will have a status, employee will have office, salary, date hire, faculty will have hours, rank, and then staff will have title. But staff will have obviously all the variables here, as well as faculty, since they're both extending employee and person. So let's just start with person. Here's the header file. So like I said, these are the variables that associates to a person. They're protected, so that way other files that's within the same folder can access it. And these are the public methods. So briefly, this is the default constructor. This is the constructor that has a certain number of parameters in this order. And then the destructor. And then of course we've set the get and set. So for future, it gets the name and returns as a string, and it reads as that for all of them. So returns the phone number, email, address, all as strings, and then here are mutators that changes name, address, phone number, and email, and returns nothing. And then we have the output, which is a virtual method, and we aim to override this output in the classes that extends to person. So to implement it, we are looking at this file here, And then no args constructor, we're automatically setting name to no name, address to homeless, phone number to no phone number, to email to no email. And this constructor basically sets the name, address, phone number, and email to the class name, address, phone number, and email. Then we have the destructor. So for the get name, address, these are the mutators that gets these variables and returns them in their respective data form. And then these are the mutators that modifies those variables if needed. And so the output here for a person, it's going to output the class name, the person's name, the address, the phone number, and the email. In the main method, we are creating, in one case, a person with using the constructor with those specified parameters. So it's going to go ahead and call the default constructor, and then it's also going to later call the constructor with those parameters and override that. Here I'm just testing out to see if the get attribute for those respective variables work. They do. And then I modified it, I called it Bill, and now I change him to Billy. So when I run this code, I should see Billy instead of Bill for person 1. And as you can see here, I do see that it's going to print person 1 first. So it's going to see, we changed to Billy, and his address, phone number, and email, and his class name is person. But for the the one with calling the no args, it's going to have no name, homeless, no phone number, and no email. We'll start with student. So for student, it extends to person. It has a status, which is constant, so after creating you cannot change it. It has a no args constructor with parameters that you have to still pass in a name, address, phone number, email address, and then its status, and then the destructor for that, and this is the get method for the status. There's not going to be a set method since status is set to constant, and then this is us overriding the output. So for the student, in our default constructor, we're going to set the status to freshman if it's not specified. And then this is the constructor that we have all these methods. And then this is the constructor, us getting the status. We're always going to get the status. We can't change it. There's no set method for it. And us retrieving the class name, the person's name, and the status. So if we look into student name, we have a student name Jack. Its address is 123 Cute Street, and then its phone number and its email, and he's a senior. And so then if we look down, we outputted it here. This is just overwriting from the person, so he's coming from student. His name is Jack, got a status senior. And then when we are instantiating an object when passing no parameters, which will naturally invoke the no args constructor, it will output no name and freshman, but it's coming from the student's class. Alright, and then we have employee. So for the employee, it's going to extend person. And this is the no args constructor, and this is the constructor with parameters, deconstructor, our get methods, and set methods that gets office salary hire date and then modifies office salary and hire date, and then we use the output to override it. So office returns as a string, and then salary is a double, and then hire date is a my date class, so we're using this class here where my date has 3 variables, a day, month, and year. And then for this line, my date has a no args constructor for my date, and we have a constructor with passing 3 parameters, all of the type int. This method here, string format date hire, the aim for that is to essentially format the hire date to be month, day, and year. and then returns it as a string. This is what the implementation file looks like. This is the noargs constructor in the case that we don't pass anything in the my date. It's going to print the current time, month, day, and year. And here we're just setting the month, day, and year to the class, and then here is us formatting the date, year, the formatted date higher, and that gets done here. So when we go to the implementation of it, if the noargs constructor is called, the office will be unknown location, salary will be 0, hire date will be 1/1/25, and so but if we did pass in some parameters, these exact parameters, we'll set the office, salary, and hire date to the class. These are our getters, setters that gets and modifies office, salary, and hire date. And this is us overwriting the person's method output. We're going to be printing class, name, office, salary, and hire date. We've done that in here. For employee 1, we didn't pass any parameters, so it's going to be calling the noargs constructor. Here we're having day, month, and year, getting the user's day, month, and year when it was hired. Passing that into my date, we're creating a my date object, and then we're going to have my date 1 stored in here when we instantiate employee 2. When we print out employee 1, we expect it to use the noargs constructor, so it's going to say no office, no 00 salary. Let's see the person got hired on Valentine's Day of this year, and so from that we get we're calling the employee class. The employee has no name, unknown location, office, salary, nothing, and then nothing for the hire date because it's calling the noargs constructor, and that's our default. But that's employee 1. Employee 2, we did pass set of parameters where it should be named Alice. The the office be 7-9. Salary should be like, what is it? About almost $500,000, and then the hire date to be Valentine's Day. So then we have, let's go look at faculty. The faculty is extending employee and then extends to person, but faculty has the variables of hours and rank. Hours will be double, rank will be a string. This is our noargs, our constructor. This is a constructor with parameters. Destructor, our get methods for hours and rank, and returns it as a double and a string, and modifiers for hours and rank, and then we're overwriting the output from the employee, which also overrides the person's. So when we're implementing it, this is what it looks like. The default constructor has set the hours to 0, rank to be unknown rank, and then for the parameterized constructor, it's going to set some the hours and rank to the class, and then we have a destructor. Get hours, get rank, we've talked about that. Set hours, set rank, we've talked about that. Now the output, it's going to be overriding the employee's output, which in turn overrides the person's output, and it's going to be printing the class name, the name of the person, hours, and rank. And in the main file, we've done it like this, where faculty 1 is going to be calling the noargs constructor, so it should have no name, 0 hours, unknown rank when we print it. And then here we're instantiating faculty 2 with these parameters called, her name will be Kelly, and we're printing in the output the name, hours, and rank. So her name should be Kelly, the faculty is the class name, hours is 45, and rank is the director. And then finally we have the staff extends to employee, which extends to person, and the only variable for staff is title. It has a string, and then we have staff. We have the default constructor, the parameterized constructor, destructor, and then the get and set method for title. When we get the title, it returns it to a string. When we set the title, we're modifying the title, and then it overrides the output from the employee and in person. So when we call the no-args constructor for staff, we're setting the title to be unknown. Whereas if we did or instantiate an object and we have these certain number of parameters, then we're going to be modifying. We could pass in everything and then set the title to the class. This is the destructor. We're getting the title. We're changing the title for set title. And then for the output, we are overriding the employees method, which in turn overrides the person's output, and we're printing the class name, the person's name, and their title. And here we instantiate staff 1 using the no-args constructor. So we should see essentially no name, unknown title, and it's coming from the class name staff. But then here for staff 2, we have Robin and 123 Cat Street and everything else, and its title be teacher. When we print it, we'll find that it's using a class called style, name Robin, and title is the teacher, and that is it. Oh, let me first